Australia's first Indian magazine to have a national reach, Indus Age is the largest circulated South Asian magazine in Australia with 5 simultaneous editions, 55,000 copies printed monthly, 220,000 readers, largest network of clients, undisputed leader in community news. Indus Age is circulated in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane and Perth to over 525 outlets. Grab your copy now to get the latest on the community, news from India, Bollywood, music and much more. For more info, log on to www.indusage.com.au.
Hello everyone, I am Karishma Bhojwani and welcome to Indus Age, an Australian-wide newspaper and magazine for the Indians. We're here at the Jaipur Literature Festival in Adelaide and I am sitting with a man difficult to pin down, an award-winning travel writer, historian, archaeologist, curator, as well as a prominent broadcaster and critic. He has written about the Middle East, Asia, and particularly India. He is also one of the co-founders and co-directors of the Jaipur Literature Festival, which is where we are today. Yes, I am talking about William Dalrymple. Thank you so much for being with us here today. So, it's such an honor to meet you today, and I'm going to jump straight into the questions.
Please do.
So, William, you had a particularly untraveled childhood. You stayed in Scotland, and you traveled the first time to India when you were 18. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, I grew up in a very beautiful part of Scotland, and my parents took the view that people would come to them, because every summer there would be this great arrival of visitors from the south coming to see Scotland. And we hardly ever went away. We had one holiday, bizarrely during the Easter holidays, which is when Scotland's at its most wet, to somewhere on the west coast that's even wetter than where we were. So my memory of childhood holidays is rain drizzling down windows and wet walks and occasionally wet boat rides. And, so when I, through a whole series of accidents, ended up in India at the age of 18, it was dazzlingly different. I mean, it's different for even the world's most travelled cosmopolitan people coming from the relatively bland West, but for someone that was as untravelled and uncosmopolitan and as Scottish as I was at that point in my life, it was just sort of mind-blowing, and it did really genuinely blow my mind, and I'm still there now. I'm still at the end of the longest gap year in history.
What was your experience when you first arrived? What was going through your mind when you first landed?
So I was already heavily into history. I was going up to Cambridge to study history, and so I reacted to it in the way that I suppose I do react to things, which is looking at the history and reading the history. And once I started reading about the Mughals, everything sort of made sense. And I spent a lot of the year going around different Sultanate and Mughal ruins in Mandu and Agra, then discovered the Deep South and discovered the great Hindu empires of Vijayanagara, went to Mahabalipuram, saw Arjun's penance, and it was like one of the most sort of incredibly educative years, because not only was I discovering all these different histories of different parts of India, but discovering the language, the people, the food, and in a sense I've spent the next 30 years digesting that.
You're still there.
Processing it. And I still have by no means finished. I mean, there's still, I could spend 3 more lifetimes, I think, and still find things that I'm longing to write about that I haven't yet had time to.
You live in a farmhouse in South Delhi.
Correct.
I find that very fascinating. So why do you choose to live in Delhi?
Yeah, people say that increasingly. I really could live anywhere. And it is true that at the moment we're speaking, Delhi is this noxious, polluted place that I think is literally the most polluted place in the world currently. But it's not like that the rest of the year. This is a very specific thing that happens after Diwali. It coincides with the crop burning in the Punjab. And it's an amazingly interesting city. It's the only city in India that's a properly pan-Indian city. You will find as your neighbours Bengalis, Himachalis, Tamils, Gujaratis, in a way that you just don't in Calcutta, which is really a Bengali city. Or Hyderabad, which is mainly a Telugu city, or Bangalore, which is largely Tamil or Kannada city. It is the New York of India in a way it wasn't. It used to be the Washington of India. It used to be a government city, a small government city. Now it's become this sort of big, swaggering megalopolis with amazing entertainment, amazing food, but also all the things I originally loved: the old pigeons, the Sufis, the dargahs, the ruins. And that's
so
all
why not Mumbai then?
So Mumbai is wonderful, and I love going to Mumbai. It's got the whole glamour world of magazines and film stars and advertising, but Delhi actually, oddly enough, is the intellectual centre of the city now, of the country now.
Yeah.
In a way it wasn't even 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Bengalis would have certainly claimed Calcutta as the intellectual centre 20 years ago,
Yeah.
but it isn't now.
Okay.
All the publishing is in Delhi.
In Delhi, okay.
All the authors live in Delhi, if you live in Bangalore. And the only publishing really that's in Bombay is now the glamour, Vogue and that sort of thing. And so within Delhi, you have this lovely world of writers and reviews and book readings and so on, and it's a very active intellectual world. And so as far as I need recharging on that front, that's all there. There's also, in winter there's the whole of Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh to explore. In summer there's the Himalayas not far away.
Wow.
So I'm very happy,
India's so beautiful.
and I have enough. I live on this farm in a way that I couldn't possibly afford to live anywhere else. With lovely garden where I grow my own veggies, have my own goats, make my own goat's cheese, and it's pretty idyllic. And if I want, at the moment I'm writing a book and I hardly leave the house. I sit in there chained to my desk. But other times, there's a whole social world there if I want it.
You want it. I've heard that your writing process is very unique. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't know if it's unique at all, but it's very specific.
Okay.
I am a historian, so I write history books, and I spend sort of 5 years, or if it's a big project, I mean, some books have been less, but it's normally a 5-year cycle.
Okay.
Gathering material, and then the actual writing is quite a quick process at the end. It's the final year, and I'm in that year at the moment. I've just come out of a really intensive month of writing. With 3 chapters down.
Wow.
So I've been sitting editing in the hotel.
Oh, that's the time that you...
And I do go slightly stir crazy and bonkers. I do like to travel and I like to go out, and I'm not doing either of that at the moment. But it's like at the end of a university, you spent 3 years having fun, then you've got to do finals, and you really got to go do your work for your finals. It's the same sort of theory. And this will now allow me at least a year of launching the book next year. So by which time I'll be sick to the back teeth of talking and interviewing and travelling and longing to come back and sit at home and read some books.
So this is the time you're on your last year.
Exactly.
Putting it down.
Yeah.
So talking about your works, your writings reflect a lot on the South Asian history. So what are the features about this region that entices you the most?
So I've had sort of quite a lot of different careers within the 30 odd years now I've been in India. At different times I've been a foreign correspondent. I've been a magazine feature writer. I have been a festival director, which I still am, I suppose.
Yeah.
I have I've curated art history exhibits. Been a literary critic, and India has sort of facilitated all that. And I've also been a photographer, and so at different times, it's a very fertile field. There are many ways in which it stimulates you, and there are many ways as a writer or an artist that you can react to it. And it allows me a sort of freedom and diversity, which I think I wouldn't have anywhere else. And so it's been a very accommodating host. I feel very grateful to it. It's often irritating, but it's never boring.
Never boring. So it keeps you going.
Yeah.
What drives you to write a book?
I'm always pulled by a subject rather than I latch onto some story I've heard at a dinner party or I've been somewhere and come across a particular tale and I want to read about it, and that leads to other journeys, and you put it all together and it becomes a book. But it also, I should say that I have friends and family who are enormously talented in a whole range of different things. And some of them could have been opera singers or ballerinas or whatever, or businessmen or lawyers. I have one talent, which is to write. I could never hold down a proper job. I'm far too erratic and badly behaved and late and unpunctual and moody and difficult for holding down any kind of sensible job. And the writer is a very accommodating space for me, exactly. Yeah.
You've spoken about the myth of the Kohinoor. Can you briefly tell us a little about that?
So Kohinoor was a very nice little. I talked about these big 5-year projects. Kohinoor was not one of those. Kohinoor was a really quite quick response to a particular news item which turned up when the Indian Solicitor General surprised many people by suddenly declaring 3 years ago that the Kohinoor was not loot. It was given to the British by Ranjit Singh, and therefore there would be no formal Indian government claim to repatriate it. Now, this is a great surprise to many people, particularly any historians who knew very well that the Kohinoor was taken by the British at the Treaty of Lahore in 1849, 10 years after Ranjit Singh was dead. So unless he gave it by Ouija board or astral projection, it's difficult to see how Ranjit Singh had anything to do with this. And it was indeed taken really at the point of a bayonet when the Sikhs had been defeated in the Second Sikh War, and it was taken by Lord Dalhousie to give to Queen Victoria. So I and my colleague Anita Anand, who had both written about the Kohinoor in our previous books, obliquely, it had been glittering in the background of her book on Safai Dulip Singh and on my book on the First Afghan War. And so we both knew a little about it from our previous work. We met one day and we said, no, this just isn't right. This history is way off. And so we decided to spend 6 months working together. First time either of us had collaborated on a book. And she knew, I, the Brit living in India, did the Indian side of the story, and she, the Indian living in Britain, did the British side of the story. And we would sort of compete for atrocities. It's a book full of horrors. It's like Game of Thrones. Every episode has a new horror story attached. And it's a sort of cross between Game of Thrones on one hand and Lord of the Rings, because it also has the Kohinoor is like the Ring of Power. It's this thing that corrupts everything it comes into, and it's this sort of object of enormous desire, which attracts people and makes them behave extremely badly.
Wow. Okay. So, for young writers who aspire to be like you, what skills do you think they would need to be a writer like you?
So, being a writer is not something that you can learn in the same way that you can learn engineering. You can, if you want to become an engineer in general, if you're numerate, you can go to engineering college and come out with a degree and you can build bridges. It's not like that with being a writer. It's something that can't really be taught. I mean, there are endless creative writing courses that can help. But if you haven't, just like painting, if you can't paint, you can go to any number of art colleges and you're not going to be able to be a great artist. Equally, in a way, many of the greatest writers, most of the greatest writers, have never been on a course. So you start writing as a product of what you read. Really, and in a sense, the best way to prepare to being a writer is just to sit on the couch and open a book and discover what you love, and then discover the authors that really make your heart beat a bit faster. And then begin writing like them, or see how you can adapt your style to do what they do, or whatever the kind of magic that they work on you. And I think most artists start by imitating the artists that they admire most. So, for example, early Beethoven sounds very like Mozart. And then it becomes Beethoven.
So it's very innate.
So I certainly started by writing slightly in the manner of all those 1930s travel writers that I loved, like Robert Byron, Peter Fleming, Evelyn Waugh, Eric Newby, slightly later writer, and then gradually get into your own, you learn how to do it in your own voice.
So it's more of an innate kind of process rather than.
So I think it's I think it is slightly like painting in that you either can do it or you can't. But once you start doing it, it is a process that an enormous amount of editing and re-editing and work and polishing can make better. One of the things you learn as a writer is that there are moments when it comes as if by dictation from angels. Very occasionally you do write something wonderful and think, where did that come from? I didn't do that. But those days are very few and far between, and most days you're pushing the pushing the snow in front of you, and you're making heavy weather through that empty cage on the screen.
Yeah.
And then every so often, the gods smile and a fluent passage.
And something will come across.
But the more I look at the work of writers I really admire, they almost always, it comes through a process of editing and re-editing. And the really great prose writers are those who go back and back and back and chisel away. And it's like in a sense more like sculpture than another art.
Keep going.
Until it's gorgeous, you polish it again, you chip away a bit more, and then finally
until you're happy.
You're happy at the end of it. Yeah.
Be perfectionist. So, how do you see the younger generation and their inclination towards literature?
In India specifically?
Yeah, in India specifically.
So, I mean, the cliche is that everyone's stuck to their phones now, and they're too busy with Instagram and Facebook or Tinder to bother with books. But I think that is nonsense. I think if anything has been displaced by that, it's TV and the movies. Reading continues, and the numbers we're getting at the Jaipur Literary Festival are 500,000 this year.
Wow.
Now, obviously, it's now a big spectacle. We have Bollywood stars, we have cricket stars. So, of that 500,000, there are a large number of people who've come with their Dior sunglasses to do selfies in front of whoever, Sohar Ali Khan, whoever is there that year. But even if you allow that maybe a third of the people there have come there for the selfie spectacle, hangout thing, there are, at every session, these eager, earnest kids, hands shooting up with an angry question about this, or how can you say this, or why have you not said this, or and they're really engaged. We sell lots and lots and lots of books. We sell hundreds of thousands of books a week. So writing is alive and well.
It's alive and well.
I mean, obviously, it's not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
It's not everyone is going to want to hear a writer speak, and not everyone's going to want to read or write.
Yeah.
But it remains, I think, a very strong minority interest.
That's so fresh to hear.
Yeah, and the numbers, I mean, the astonishing numbers we're getting.
That's
and they come from, they come from Tamil Nadu, they come from Assam, they come from Gujarat. Sometimes they're camping rough in Jaipur railway station. They can't afford a room. They're still there, and you see they spent the money they could have spent on a hostel, on a book. And it's lovely.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
Contrary to popular opinion. Okay, so why the Jaipur Literature Festival? It's such an international feast of cultural connections and new perspectives. What motivated you to start this?
So I didn't start it alone. There were three of us that put it together. We're still the three that run it. Sanjay is our producer. Namita Gokhale does particularly the Bhasha, the non-English and the Indian stuff. I do mainly the foreign stuff, but again, there's a huge amount of intermingling. I do quite a lot of Indian art, for example, which is something I'm keen on. She's much more knowledgeable about China and the Scandinavian, for example, than I am. So we have our different interests, and we're slightly. I think it works as well as it does as a threesome, in that it's like a three-legged stool, in that each one of us has so different interests and such different talents that you move one leg and the whole thing falls over. I mean, no way could I, discover the Bengali poets or the sort of Punjabi bards or the feminist writers in Kerala that Namita does. But equally, I think she'd be quite hard pressed to have the knowledge of the Caribbean writers that I've managed to build up, and ditto. Neither of us could do Sanjay's job, which is this amazing logistical feat of pulling off this enormous thing. So it's been a very successful partnership. Why did we do it? I think all three of us would have different answers to that. For me, it was that literary festivals in the 1980s and 90s were springing up all over the world, and it was odd that there was nothing in India, because Indian writers were everywhere. You go to Hay on Wye, you go to Penn, New York, you go to Sydney Writers Festival, and you would see Vikram Seth, Arundhati Roy, Amitabh Ghosh. There was this odd situation in about sort of the turn of the century, when you would see Indian writers everywhere except India. And so it made instant sense and logic to when we put up this range of writers initially within the Jaipur Virasat Festival, which was the general heritage festival of Rajasthan. That people react to that very strongly, and then we outgrew, in a sense, the mother festival, and then there was a split at one point. The music and the dance went off and became the Jodhpur Riff, the Rajasthan International Folk Festival, and we stayed in Jaipur as the Jaipur Literature Festival. So now there's two festivals, which is lovely.
That's beautiful that two festivals have come out of it. What importance does a literature festival hold in today's age and time?
So, literature festivals obviously fulfill a range of different functions.
Yeah.
On one hand, I suppose we're simple entertainment.
Yeah.
It's where it's a stimulating weekend away for someone in Delhi or Bombay or indeed from London. There's also a great deal of education. We, in the course of Jaipur, last year I think we had 10 tenured professors from Harvard, 5 Oxbridge. We had 3 Nobel Prize winners, 2 Booker winners, 2 Pulitzer winners. So, and it's all for free. So it's like a huge super university pitching its tent for a weekend.
Yeah.
A long weekend, and massive. You can. Where else in the world can you hear a Nobel Prize winner for free?
Yes.
Nowhere.
Nowhere.
So it's somewhere on that cusp between education, literature, and entertainment. But we're very clear, though, that it's not. In the old days in India, used to have these sort of Sahitya Academy book launches where lots of very solemn people would sit around picking the book being launched apart. And I disagreed. And then there'd be tea and samosas, and everyone would go off feeling slightly miserable. Jaipur is very consciously sort of tries to throw in the Great Indian Wedding at the same time. We are at the end of the evening there's partying, there's music, there's fun, and dance, and it's a lot of fun. It's like monsoon wedding, it's not a mournful occasion. It is a festival. It is festive.
Why is it Jaipur Literature Festival and Jodhpur dance?
Just the way it's panned out.
Okay.
It's in Jaipur because it started in Jaipur.
Okay.
Faith and John Singh started this Jaipur Virasat Festival. They were this amazing couple who had started Anoki. Then when they retired, they wanted to do a celebration of the arts of Rajasthan. They invited me to come and do a reading. I then got in Namata the following year to bring in Rajasthani audiences and Rajasthani writing, which I didn't know anything about. And it grew from that.
Okay.
So we stayed in Jaipur, and had we gone out and got focus groups and done exploratory studies and done the full kind of business thing, we could not have chosen a better centre than Jaipur. It has hundreds of amazing hotels, which the perfect weather in January. There's nothing else on at the same time. All the big festivals in the West are in the summer. It's got good air links with everywhere. It was it looks like a very, very smart decision. In fact, it was a very, very lucky decision.
Okay.
And entirely because Faith and John lived in Jaipur and wanted to do a festival themselves. But literally, had we sort of commissioned studies, we could not have, I think, come up with a better place or at a better time of year. And a lot of the success has come from the fact that people just love going to Jaipur, and particularly in January. And everywhere else in the world is miserable. You don't want to be in London in January. It's a bit hot here in Adelaide. It's kind of freezing snow in New York, and Jaipur's gorgeous.
Jaipur is the perfect place for it. Lovely. So what do you think needs to be done to keep this industry thriving, apart from having such beautiful literature festivals?
Which industry are you talking about?
The literature industry.
Nothing particularly needs to be done. It's thriving.
It's thriving, but
it's thriving. We double in size every year. Our problem is that we haven't got room for everyone. And the number of book sales doubles every year. There is no, and in general, publishing in India, contrary to the trend in the whole wider world, is also flourishing. Many foreign publishers are opening up in India every year. Literary agencies are scouting for talent. No, this is a boom area.
That's so fresh to hear, because most people would assume the other way around.
Correct.
Because of the digital space. But
Correct.
it's very good to hear.
There is also, I think there's two different things which are happening. One is publishing is still expanding in India, which is extremely unusual. But there's also something which is going with current trends, which is that everywhere, I think, in the world, when one's spending more time on one's phone, there is a premium on reality.
Yeah.
So if you're constantly either on your phone or looking at a screen in the office, to actually see the band live, to hear the author speak, this is now a greater treat than ever, because we live so much, our life is pixelated. And so to actually see the flesh and blood, whether it's a Rolling Stones tour,
that's so true,
or whether it's Jhumpa Lahiri in person,
it's really such a luxury.
And that's true everywhere. So this is why you find all these old monsters of rock reforming, and Bob Dylan and the Stones and everyone still sort of attracting peak audiences, because we spend our lives with our headphones on, listening to them. And now we can actually see them. And that's true as much of authors as of musicians.
That's so good to hear, and such a good perspective. Well, thank you so much for your time, William. It was amazing. It was such a wonderful conversation. It's been such an honor to speak to you and pick your brain. I'm Karishma from Indus Age, and until next time.
Australia's first Indian magazine to have a national reach, Indus Age is the largest circulated South Asian magazine in Australia with 5 simultaneous editions, 55,000 copies printed monthly, 220,000 readers, largest network of clients, undisputed leader in community news. Indus Age is circulated in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane and Perth to over 525 outlets. Grab your copy now to get the latest on the community, news from India, Bollywood, music and much more. For more info, log on to www.indusage.com.au.